where the models can think and answer for harder questions. And also the models can go through a long chain of thought process before executing a very complicated workflow, like doing the work of an analyst, doing the work of a research analyst, or like a professional researcher, doing background research or diligence research or anything. All these things earlier would require very sophisticated workflows, but now essentially get compressed to a very long-running chain of thought process with good orchestration of the LLMs and a bunch of tools and data providers and APIs and things like that. So that's creating all these new kind of products like deep research that was never possible before. And it's also going to lead to creation of things like agents, right? It's the workflows that actually execute tasks for us. And so that's going to change our impression of AIs from just chatbots and answer engines and research agents to like assistants and potentially vertical and horizontal. So that's why like this year is very exciting.
Are you having sleepless nights though? Because the pace at which this disruption, it's so intense that it's taking days for a rival to launch a competing product and out-execute an incumbent. So how do you keep up with it?
Well, there's no substitute to hard work. So we work pretty hard. That's why I'm like, after your call, I'm still going to go back to work. This particular that moment in AI is something that you just cannot miss. It's if you probably take a break and come back after 3 months, it'll look like the world has changed completely. Just to make sense of what I said, like imagine you were, end of December or early January, and if I told you there'll be DeepSeek, there'll be deep research, there'll be O3 Mini, and like all these different models and like agents and like all, image generation, all these things that happen in the first 3 months of the year, you would be like, come on, I know AI is moving fast, but this sounds too much. But that's literally what happened, right? And so if anything, we should expect things to move even faster for the rest of the year.
So are you clocking 90 hours a week, Arvind, 100 hours a week? Have you stopped?
I don't know. I try to work all my waking hour. And there's this quote of Jensen Huang, like I wake up, I work, and even when I'm not working, I think about work. I think that's basically what's happening, what's going on, and I really don't think anyone actually in the arena like actually like doing stuff right now. I don't think they're doing anything different from me. This seems like the bare minimum expectation right now.
Right. So Perplexity, which began as this answer engine just under 3 years ago, the answer to Google as we knew it, you've recently crossed $100 million in ARR. Cursor, another AI-enabled coding platform, has also crossed 100 million in ARR in just 21 months. And Midjourney, reached 200 million in ARR with just 11 employees. And Bolt crossed 30 million in ARR with just 20 employees. Arvind, earlier, every funding round for a startup used to coincide with this huge demand for engineers, full stack developers, mean stack developers. Their salaries would boom, at least, till 2-3 years ago, every time there was a funding round for a startup. But now we are seeing this new trend where you're able to build 10x better AI products with very few engineers, right? What does that mean for the future of engineering jobs, especially in a country like India, which produces millions of engineers every year? All of you are able to achieve so much without throwing, people at problems.
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. I would just say at this point, like, if you're not using AIs when you're writing code, you're essentially stagnating yourself by sticking with the old workflow and old tooling. And people who do use AIs to write code are getting work done way faster. We see that internally, even at Perplexity. There are some engineers who are like very good at using these AIs for writing code, no matter whether it's in their editor, like in the form of GitHub Copilot or Cursor, or if it's like an end-to-end deployment app like Replit or Bolt, or if it's something that's just a separate standalone app like Perplexity or ChatGPT. Whoever is using AIs, they're getting work that's meant to be done in weeks and days. and they're able to fix bugs way faster. When somebody points out a feedback like, oh, can we move this button here? Can we change the UI to do something like this? A designer can actually just look at that, come up with a new mock-up, and then just like ask AI to write the code in Swift if it's Apple ecosystem product, and just like actually ship it, deploy it, emulate it, and see if it works, and then ship it to production, and then a new version of the app is pushed to the App Store. So earlier, this process would take weeks to write code and like go through some testing and all that stuff. Now that's being done in days. And so at the end of a year, like whatever app you have is just so much better with just very few engineers. So I think the solution I would say is like engineers in India, like they definitely should start using AIs as much as possible to write code and write software. And then definitely you're going to need fewer people to do the same amount of work. That doesn't mean that you don't need the other people, but you're just going to find a lot more projects. And so we can get like a lot more software projects done. There can be a lot of competing products doing the same category of products, or there can be so many different new category of products that don't exist in India yet. And then it could also mean that like, people with a lot of creative taste no longer need to feel like code monkeys if they want to like just get paid for something, right? They have an AI to do all that for them now, so they can truly be liberated, have all the freedom to go push new ideas into production themselves, own the users, build businesses on their own, potentially get to like $1 million in revenue annual recurring on with just like a one-person company or two-person company. And that can lead to a completely different kind of economy too, where people publish all these apps that they made for themselves or their friends, and a few others find it interesting and pay for that. It's going to lead to a new kind of app store. So I see endless possibilities. At the same time, I'm not like going to say everything's looking good. There's going to be a transition time, and people who don't adapt definitely are going to face some difficulties. So I would say more awareness on this topic is essential.
Right. Arvind, you spoke about what engineers should be doing, but what do you think all of us should be doing? Anyone in the room who wants to experiment with AI, learn about AI, use it in their daily lives, how should they go about it? Where should they start?
I think you should start literally from everything. And I'm, by the way, this applies to me. It doesn't mean people who are running AI companies know how to use AI is better. In fact, like I still check emails in the same kind of way, or I'm still like moving around meetings and calendar appointments in the same kind of ways I used to do before. And now I've been thinking, okay, well, shouldn't you ideally be asking an AI to do these things for you? And preparing ahead of a meeting. Suppose you're going to meet somebody, or like you're going to meet like 5 people in a meeting, getting their bios ahead of time. Like you can enter anybody's name on Perplexity now and get a pretty good bio. You can enter 5 people's names together and it'll still do that for you. Automatically annotating your day ahead of time, being even more prepared. Sometimes you're going to a sell call, you're trying to sell your product to somebody. Precisely doing your research on what that person likes to hear and catering your message according to that. These are kind of things I used to do manually before. I just use AIs for it now. Similarly, like when I'm trying to like ask new questions about a topic I don't understand, whatever is going on in the global economy right now, I'm not that financially or economically literate. So I can learn about a new topic as soon as something happens, without needing access to any expert. And I feel like that's a completely different future we're living in. So this is all like every common day-to-day person, all the research, making sense of the world. Everything can be done with AIs now. And then you can also customize it to your profession if you're a product manager or like a business development professional, coming up with strategies to getting better at one particular task you're doing. A lot of our product managers have to use our products themselves to get a taste for like what to improve there. consolidating customer support, like all the feedback people give about the product on so many different platforms. And AI can actually read all of that and like triage into the right set of issues based on the frequency of complaints better than a human can today. So you got to take advantage of all these tools.
Right. Arvind, we are at the Rising Bharat Forum. We had Prime Minister Modi with us yesterday. He made a very rousing speech. I want to understand about what you think India should do to improve its research prowess in AI. Last week, for instance, we had Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal comparing India with China, where he said, it's very well that we are one of the largest startup ecosystems in the world, but we are building delivery apps, we are building, we are making fancy ice creams and cookies, but where is the hard innovation and hard technology that China has been able to do, whether in semiconductors or EVs? So what would your, reading be? How can we build a perplexity out of India? I mean, you studied in IIT Madras, you went to Berkeley and then built perplexity out of the US. It's now going to be valued, I think, at $18 billion on your next funding round. Why can't we build a world-beating product out of India? What will it take?
I certainly think we can. Just to comment on the code, I think it's a very positively provocative comment, and generally those comments are meant to instigate, like, okay, let me come and show that I can do it, sort of a reaction. So I hope that's what it leads to. Just to make it clear, China went through this trajectory too. Whatever India is doing right now, of like trying to build clones of apps that already exist, but for the Indian market, China did that for a long time. In fact, there's a whole joke in the TV show Silicon Valley about it, of how like every single startup, you just prefix a new to it and then you do it in China. That's how like the new Pied Piper. I think that's essentially what happened for a while there, and they built all that muscle to like ship products pretty quickly and iterate and like and only then they started building new products that did not exist and captured a global audience beyond the Chinese market, like TikTok, for example, right? And so India can certainly produce its own like TikTok, or which again is not deep tech, but it's still one product that would get the global audience rather than just the Indian audience. It's certainly possible, and like I was with in a podcast with Nikhil Kamath. I think he was discussing the same question with me of like what would it take for India to build an Instagram rival. And I think all these questions should be explored, like that more people should be encouraged to try these ideas. And venture capital scene is very essential. Like I think VCs in India are still very risk averse, and they like to invest in things that they wouldn't lose money on, rather than investing in things they would potentially make a lot of money on, but are okay losing some money in some incorrect bets. So the mindset should be like, okay, 95% of my investments would fail, but 5% of my investments would return me like 100 or 1000x. That the 95% that failed doesn't matter. I think that mindset doesn't quite exist in Indian venture capital right now. So if that changes and like more people from IITs are convinced to like raise venture capital money and like found companies there and try to take on like the big tech, start with the Indian market and then expand to the rest of the world, there are some unique things that come out of it. So you take study products like YouTube or WhatsApp or Chrome. All these are products that grew a lot in India in the beginning, like YouTube offline downloads, for example, WhatsApp particularly. Chrome, the browser, couldn't really beat like Internet Explorer or Safari in the United States for a long time, but they captured the mind share and market share in India. So certainly, like that sort of trajectory is possible for new products too.
Right. Final couple of questions before I let you go, Arvind. You had announced hiring plans to expand your operations in India a few months ago. How is that progressing? Any numbers that you can share on, your adoption in the India market? Because OpenAI recently said that this is the fastest growing market for ChatGPT. So if you can give us a sense of how India is shaping up for you. You're also focusing a lot on cricket content of late. So has that helped you?
So India is in the top 10 countries for us right now, probably even close to the top 5 in terms of revenue already. I'm not even talking about usage, just even revenue. which has really pleasantly surprised me because our product is priced pretty expensively right now for the Indian
$20,
market.
right?
Sorry?
It's still $20, right? So
Yeah, that's right. Yes, $20 is pretty expensive, but I've pleasantly been surprised of the willingness to pay for the product. A lot of people are using the deep research agent that we have. Our Pro Search is being used by a lot of people too, and it's definitely in terms of daily query traffic too. It's in the top five or top four for us. So it's a pretty important market, and and I think like we've also been very pleasantly surprised by how fast it's growing. I'm sure that OpenAI is sharing similar statistics. I did my research on this in terms of enterprise like knowledge worker adoption. India is quite far ahead of like even countries like United Kingdom, according to some research that's been done. And so a lot of people who are like digital knowledge workers, professionals, they're heavy adopters of generative AI, and they're big users of Perplexity and other products in this market. As for our hiring, I think it's honestly gone slower than I would have liked. We haven't actually hired that one person to really grow our business in India yet. We've got tons of applications. I definitely went through some of them, but to be fair, like we couldn't like go through the entire list. It was pretty complicated, and I would have to spend a little more time on this because the expectation was only people with like some amount of experience with like general manager or like business development would apply. But basically, the interest was so big that wide array of people with different set of skills applied, and so many referrals from people I know as well. So it got overwhelming to a point where I decided I would wait for a while and make sense of like what we really need there before expanding. And yes, like focusing on cricket is very important. There are lots of searches on cricket that are already happening on Perplexity, and we want to keep growing that. And we plan to also incorporate other content that's interesting to Indian audience, like entertainment, TV shows, movies, all local results, better support for languages. All these things need to be there for the product to be widely useful to the Indian audience.
Right. India-specific pricing coming, Arvind?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the number yet, but we're definitely thinking about it. Yeah.
So we can expect a lower number to subscribe to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think
Right.
that's the right strategy. Many other consumer subscription apps have done this, like Netflix, Amazon. So definitely that's the way to go. Obviously, our inference is expensive. We don't want to like put a lower tier quality product just for like saving costs there. So we are trying to figure out a way to like distill some of the open source models, make it more efficient, and like what should be in the lower tier plan and what should be in the higher tier plan. Like we're trying to think about it.
Right. Last question before I let you go. What's the one piece of advice in the AI industry that you deliberately ignore?
I think I can say two things. One is people often want to plan ahead, right? People want to have a strategy and a plan for 1 year or 2 years and stick to it no matter what happens in the world. I think that used to be a fine strategy when the world was moving a lot slower. It doesn't hold true anymore. Like everything changes pretty fast. Whatever you think doesn't work well, and so you kind of build around that. You're just like flummoxed when something happens in like reasoning, for example. So if you assume agents don't work and then agents start working, like what do you do? And similarly, if you assume something's really going to work and speed of progress is like slow there, what do you do? So you have to be pretty flexible and fast moving. And so I don't actually plan the company for more than 3 months right now. This is not the best way to run any company, but in AI, it happens to be like a perfect strategy for us. The second thing I would say is a lot of people try to work backwards from what the user wants, narrow down the problem into like a very specific set of things, and build for one particular demographic or vertical. It's a very established advice in any kind of company, be it consumer or enterprise. The problem with AI, though, is you're building with a generic piece of technology. It's so hard to bake in custom constraints into it, and the more custom you try to make it, the more it loses its magic of generality, which is what people love about using AIs. And so, without actually having an end user or like an end demographic or vertical in mind, it's so hard to actually build anything as a product builder. But you kind of have to figure out the sweet spot of still being useful for a particular set of users, but making the product as general and horizontal as possible. And I think these are the two main reasons I would say a lot of people struggle to build AI native products in companies, but it's absolutely essential.
Great. On that note, Arvind, thank you very much for joining us. You can get back to your work, but thank you very, very much for joining us at Rising Bharat. A huge round of applause, everyone, for Arvind Srinivas of Perplexity.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arvind.
Well, what an insightful session, isn't it? A huge thank you once again to Mr. Srinivas for sharing his expertise and vision on how AI is shaping the future of this country. And ladies and gentlemen, up next in the forum, we discuss a topic that has taken the world by storm over the past few weeks. The television series Adolescence, which has undoubtedly sparked a much-needed conversation about the complexities and realities of growing up in the modern world, especially in the digital age. And for those who are not quite familiar with what the series is all about, it portrays the lives of teenagers navigating their social, emotional, and digital landscapes. The show has opened a window into the struggles and pressures that many adolescents and their parents face today. The limited OTT series has created space for an open and honest conversation about what it really means to be a parent in the current digital times, and how together we can equip ourselves with the tools, strategies, and perspectives that are needed to navigate this ever-evolving era for the young, for the current generation. So we welcome our esteemed panelists for this session, Mr. Harpreet Singh Grover, founder, The Curious Parent, along with the Dr. Amit Sen, Director, Senior Child and Adolescent Psychiatrist, Children First, and Sonal Mehrotra joins them and takes this conversation ahead. Can we have a huge round of applause, please?
All right then, we are making quite a pivot now. You heard from the people who are making AI and turning it into really complex ideas, providing solution, talking about jobs. But here we are to talk about the flip side. So can I, before I begin, get a quick raise of hands on how many sitting here are actually parents? Quite a few, all right. Have you guys seen the latest series, Adolescence? Okay, you have. Okay, the gentleman is very convinced and is raising his hand while recording as well. Okay, so there is a lot of conversation of late. Actually, we didn't really need that series to get started about our conversation on what social media is doing. But for a minute, for everybody here, I want you to imagine a scenario. Imagine a scenario where your kid's best friend, closest confidant, and also the go-to person is not you, but somebody who can fit in your kid's pocket. Imagine a world where the kid is not coming to you for answers, pacifying, or any sort of reassurance, but going to an app. I'm sure you're going to think, oh, hello, Sonal, you don't have to imagine, it's already happening. So yes, that is the truth today. We are in times when an entire generation is growing up along with AI. And neither do they or we, to be honest, understand what it means and what it can do. So over the next couple of minutes, I am joined by these really sweet and really knowledgeable gentlemen who will help us understand a couple of questions. Number one, is social media really the culprit? Number two, is social media parenting our kids? Number three, at what age should you then give your phone to your child? And number five, if your child at home, your kid, boy or a girl, acts out and says, there is peer pressure, what to do? Everybody has a phone, everybody's on WhatsApp, why can't you give it to me? What should you do? All right? So that should set the context a little bit. Let me just begin straight away. Dr. Sen, I'm going to begin with you. So much has been said about what social media is really doing to our kids. Do you think today it's the single largest reason for distraction, disassociation, anxiety, and several other development issues that we are seeing not just in Gen Z, but also Gen Alpha?
Thank you, Sonal, for the question and also for having me here. There's no question that over the last decade or two, there's an exponential rise in anxiety, depression, substance misuse, developmental concerns like inattention, difficulty focusing, not being able to complete tasks that are expected of them, and so on. And perhaps there are more than one reason to it. Social media and the digital world, no doubt, has contributed to it. But I think it's naive and irresponsible to just shift the blame and say it's social media. Who has brought social media after all? Who has given the kids the, all the digital space? Who has created it, right? What kind of control do we have? Yeah, and the other questions that you asked as to what age do we introduce them to it? And also other big questions as to what kind of role as adults do we play in our children's lives? What kind of agency or responsibility that we have over there, right? So to shift the blame and say social media it is, and all the digital gadgets that they have surrounded, they are surrounded with, that I think is a little callous.
Okay. I was expecting Dr. Sen to say that and push the needle towards parents, saying, "Aap hi to phone de rahe hain. So, fix yourself. Why are you blaming social media?" I was expecting him to say that. He's done exactly that. But here we have another voice of parents. Harpreet is here. Harpreet, social media is both a device for endless possibilities, but also a Pandora's box of absolute risks. How much of it is actually only the parents' fault? And I want you to be a little kind towards all the parents sitting here in the audience today, who are hardworking parents, who are double income households, where the mother and the father both go to work. Largely most of the work at home is the add-on that the mother has to do. In that time, to put the blame solely on them, is that really correct?
So I would say two things. First, the show is about a 13-year-old who kills a girl, okay? And that is what the show is about and how that has happened. And what struck me about the show was that this entire family seems normal. It's a hard-working father, a mother who really cares. एक बच्चा भी नहीं है, दो बच्चे हैं घर में, so they have.
The mother is stay at home.
Sorry?
The mother is stay at home.
The mother is stay at home and
full-time mom.
And she genuinely cares. All of them care. Like the father and the mother, in the end, they're talking and saying, could we have done something different? Like that is their conversation. Like where did we go wrong? And I think, like you said, today we are busy as parents. And this is the story of each and every home, right? And I want to take and like all of us are good parents, but sadly, being good parents, having good intentions about our child is not good enough now. And I want to take a step back to history on why this has happened. If we go about, so human beings are 2 million years old, industrial level, and always babies have grown alongside parents. Look, for these 2 million years old. About 300 years ago, when the Industrial Revolution happened, the first time parents were separated physically from a child's life. So they had to now go to factories and the child had to be sent somewhere. Okay, so the child could no longer be the parent. That is the first thing that happened. Wo bhi theek hai, that was also okay. The second thing that happened was when technology came, parents start to use it. Then we have some time with the child, but we are mentally absent. Yeah, so that was the second blow. And the third blow that happens is when the child also uses the same technology. Now, all of this happens with a tired parent who's going to work to earn enough for the house, for the home, a mother who's also tired. Everything happening with good intentions. So let me go back. This is the first time in history that this is happening. Being a good parent is no longer good enough. One needs to understand a little bit about what constant screen can done to a child. For example, a 2-year-old, when they see screen for too long, they will not learn to speak. They will actually not learn to speak. And a child at the age of, like what happens in the series, can kill somebody just because they are not emotionally regulated and they are not connected to their parents.
So, guys, did you notice what happened here? My first question was on, can you blame social media? The answer was no. My second question was, can you blame parents? The answer was again no. What are you guys saying? No, who is to be fixed here? Dr. Sen first, yeah.
Can I respond to that? Yeah, so there's social media, there are parents, there's school and education system. There are other things that are happening out in the world which affect children, in the playground, amongst the peer group. There is a kind of socio-political climate that cascades into the school atmosphere, into homes. So it's not one thing that you can blame. I think the stakeholders are many, and that's what we need to understand, that parenting or bringing up children is a complex issue today because of all these.
It's a village.
So, for instance, it's a village, yeah. And for instance, even in the TV show, if you look at the atmosphere in school, there's palpable aggression and violence that is happening. Verbal, physical, the kind of language that is used, the othering and the bullying that goes on the basis of race, on the basis of language, on the basis of, one, young person with a certain color being called a monkey and getting mimicked right in class. All of that is happening, isn't it? Where is it coming from? It's coming from the society that we've built around our children. And that's why it's getting into school, isn't it? Right? Yeah. And then, of course, there are these other things that we know exists in our world, such as neglect and abuse. It happens rampantly. And in fact, unfortunately, in India, we have one of the highest rates of physical sexual abuse in children. So how do you, draw a line or circumscribe it and say, this is the problem? It is not a linear cause and effect relationship. It's circular, it's dynamic, and all these things contribute to it. And that's what we have to be mindful of. That just being a good parent, as you're saying, is not going to cut it. We have to be mindful of all that is happening in the world around them, to be able to protect them, to be able to have...
I disagree, absolutely. I disagree with the way you have framed the question, in the sense of who is to blame here. Like, if somebody was to say, you are to blame, I wouldn't like it. If I tell the parent, you are to blame, social media is to blame, I don't think it fixes stuff, right? In the series, there is a place where the child is being interrogated by a psychiatrist, psychologist, and at the end, the 13-year-old asks, do you like me? Like, at the end of the conversation, there's the fourth visit, the final visit, the child asks, do you like me? And I think that is so profound that, so social media wants our children to be consumers. Social media wants our child to believe that happiness is external. As parents, we want our children to be creators. It is a responsibility for a child to feel that happiness ghar mein hai. It is internal. I was at the beach on Sunday and we took my daughter, a few other kids, and there were 3 teenage girls who came, around 16 years old. They were well dressed. 3 hours we were on the beach, 3 hours they were on the beach. They did not step into the water. The only thing they did was click pictures. All 3 of them. And I'm not saying this from an angle of judgment. I am saying life is an experiencing. But for them, life is in some way in taking a picture, putting it online and saying we had a fun time. They are at the beach. They did not go into the beach, into the water. No water sports, nothing.
So hold that thought then. Hold that thought. When you say kids are finding validation, finding quality time on social media, since you didn't like me saying who's to blame, where is this coming from? Because we all know kids are sponge. They absorb. They do what they see. They never do what you tell them to do. But they only do what they see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I respond to that? Yeah. So, yes, indeed. Kids require a lot of attention. They require to be seen, to be validated, to be recognized in the way they are, right? So kids are different, they're wired differently, and they will do or choose to do different things if given an opportunity. If they do not get the validation from the sources that you would naturally expect them to, which could be sometimes parents, it could be from the schooling system, it could be from other social spaces, which recognizes these differences in children, what their talents are like. If they do not get it, they have to fulfill it from somewhere. And increasingly, that is the case. In fact, we as a system are failing them in a way, all of these people, the stakeholders, in a way where the only source of this validation, therefore, comes from the selfies and the likes they get, isn't it? And that's so dangerous because it's so fragile. It'll change overnight, isn't it? Every morning, the first thing they'll go is reach out to the phone and see how many likes their Instagram post got. And that is the beginning of the day, isn't it? And the other thing that happens, of course, due to social media and gadgets is that it never leaves you. See, earlier on when we did not have all this, then kids perhaps had a bad day in school, but they would come home and get a nurturing environment. When they went out to the playground, there would be another environment. They could leave all that angst, that comparison behind.
That requires a bit of a nuance, Dr. Sen. That requires a bit of a nuance because it's not like bullying in schools was not happening before social media. Yeah. It's not like sexual abuse in school was not happening before social media. It's not like people had a lower sense of self or a more magnanimous sense of self before social media. All these problems prevailed.
Social media amplifies it and takes it into their lives every minute, every hour of their waking hours, perhaps in the dreams as well.
You know, I want to take two examples of this. If a child is crying and you give them screen, they suddenly stop crying. If a child is not eating and you give them screen, they suddenly stop eating. It's like a magic fix-all for a child not to learn to navigate their own emotions. But whenever they're feeling uncomfortable, just before frustration arrives, a screen solves it, right? That is something to avoid. And you said an interesting thing, which is that I want to take a small example of it. That when a young child trips, okay, before crying, the child actually looks up to the adult. If the adult is worried, if there's worry on the adult's face, the child starts to cry. If the adult is smiling, the child picks themselves up and walks away. Children learn to regulate their emotions, how they should behave from adults around them. If they start learning it from social media, there is an issue there.
Yeah. I'm very glad you brought that example because I want to move towards some solutions here. I think a lot of people are nodding their head in the audience because they absolutely agree with a lot of these scenarios going on at home. So do I. All three of us are parents and we all have gone through this phase, including Harpreet, he might not look it, and providing answers to all other parents as well. I'm sure you've had your share of, experiences as well. So how do we solve this problem? Because I'll tell you how it starts. It starts with the mother or the parent, they're also human, not being able to sort of control the child, getting tired. And it's just that one song of Cocomelon. It's just wheels on the bus. It's just round, round, round. It's so innocent. It starts with that one screen. Are you saying we've got to clip it at the source? Are you saying we've got to ensure that if we want to safeguard our kids from any kind of social media abuse, distraction, we've got to clip it there and put a deadline. Do what other countries have done. 13 countries I counted yesterday in my research have now said that there will be no social media until 13. Are you saying we've got to cut the umbilical cord right there? Harpreet first and then Doctor.
Social media cord, 100%. There is no doubt about that. Till the age of 13. Maybe even couple
No phones, no smartphones to 13.
So I'm saying, I'll tell you, the parent will say, but the school gives homework on phone, right? Or the parent will say, my child goes out You know, let me take an example. A 13-year-old actually said, my father does not allow me to go to tuitions alone. वो बोलते हैं किसी को साथ में लेके जाओ. And we have always been so worried about the child's physical security but we have forgotten about this mental security about the child, right? So replace the smartphone with a feature phone. Give the child a smartwatch. I'm saying both of these are enough from a safety perspective. Give the child a laptop. Ensure the child understands that their history and etc., all of that are open to you. There is no question of privacy on internet for a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old. There is no such question. For a child to say, this is mine, you cannot see. That doesn't work because their brain is still not developed.
Not in India, but clearly in other places.
I'm saying so many of
Even
us are...
India.
So far.
You know, and the last thing I want to say is that it is important to remember that when we give our child a smartphone, we not only give our child access to the world, we give the world access to our child. And who will access our child is something that as parents we should know. And having simple rules in the house can just help everything. Like in our case, screen time, our daughter's 9.5, is on weekends, 1 hour each. That's it. That's the screen time.
Okay. I'm saying this also because there are movements now going across the globe on smartphone-free childhood. People are signing up, celebrities in Hollywood, etc., are all signing up to say, boss, this can't happen. You've got to ensure and prevent your kids. Since you said in your opening remark that just taking the phone off is not enough, I want to understand then what do we do? We've discussed this in the past when if there is an age for drinking, there is an age for driving, should there now be an age to actually use social media?
Oh, absolutely.
And is that practical enough? Like, is that even possible in the age of AI? Don't you think the kids will find a solution anyhow?
Yes, absolutely. So, and they will. In fact, if you actually be too punitive or harsh about it, if you become a strict parent who's putting their foot down without actually negotiating with kids, especially once they've become 10, 11, 12, then they'll find their way. They'll go to their grandparents, they'll go to their older sibling or a cousin or borrow it from their friend. So it's very important that we factor that in. So gadgets and the digital world is not all social media. There are many other things that happen on it. And as Harpreet was saying, that we can be mindful of what we give to the child and the discussions that we have. I'm absolutely, I would object to the idea of giving smartphones and tablets to 2-3-year-olds, which parents often do. But once they come into primary school, perhaps once they're 5 or 6, indeed there is a lot of learning that is happening. You know, and schools are giving homework there. They're giving projects and there are activities, including creative activities that are happening there. So we have to divide the time that kids, use the digital space with. For instance, we can divide it into education. We can divide it into social connections, including friends and family, where you do video calls and chats. Then there is social media. And finally, entertainment. There's entertainment as well, isn't it? Yeah? And you can't get away from that. And there are various gadgets that are fulfilling it. Now,
does that regulation really work, Dr. Sen?
No. So the thing is, it's important for us to define it and to help and to get into those conversations from a very early age. From the beginning.
You said a very beautiful word earlier. You said if you negotiate with your child.
Yes. Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Yes, absolutely. So the negotiation can start. So in the beginning, when children are very little, you can still have a conversation, but you're a custodian and you can put your foot down and say, this is a boundary. Yeah, like you have half an hour of any gadget in the weekdays and maybe 1 hour in the weekends, and that's all you'll get, right? But once they begin to get into tweens, as they call it now, and all their peers are doing it, right, and they're watching it, they'll come and fight with you about it, right? That's when the negotiation starts. That's when asking questions about, so what do you think the screen is doing to you? What do you need it for? What are these different categories that you use the screen for? And that's when you can together collaboratively establish boundaries. As children grow up, when they become 13, 14, they will have their say. And it's important to respect it. So as long as we are able to make these decisions through negotiation and collaborative, then chances are that they will not do it behind your back. And if they have indeed crossed the boundary, they might come and tell you. You have to have the relationship first. And in fact, your question was, how do we deal with it? The first thing you deal with is how do you build on your relationship. It keeps changing. It's a very dynamic process. Your relationship with a baby to a toddler to tweens and then to teenagers is entirely different. And how do you negotiate through that is another big question. Many times I find, if I can just finish with one last thing, many times I've found that parents, when, children become teenagers, say that, oh, ab to bade ho gaye hain. They look after themselves, They have their own world, they have their own friends. And little do they realize that that world is going to completely take over their lives. And parents will have little to contribute then.
I loved what you said about negotiating. I find it so beautiful and so hard. So, Harpreet, what's the toolkit? What's the magic mantra here? Like we were discussing earlier, a perfect parent, do they even exist in today's world? And is there a code to achieving that? I know a lot of it is mirroring, and I know a lot of it is what they see in their own surroundings. But when social media, when you think that your child is in your house, under your care, in their room, even then they're not alone now. They are with the gadget. And no matter, like Dr. Sen also said, no matter how hard you try, they will find a way. So what do we do? What is the way out here?
Can I take an example? Can I read out something? Is that okay? I'll read out a little bit few lines. But I'm saying I met a husband and wife with a 15-year-old, and we were sitting on the grass, and I meet less parents generally, but they had requested and we met. And they said, our daughter is completely into her smartphone. She keeps ordering stuff from Amazon and keeps taking pictures and putting them online. We are worried that she's not serious about her 10th exams. What do we do? And very intense about it. And so I asked that,
आपने नहीं पूछा कि आप कितना time spend करते हैं social media?
I think it is okay for adults to see smartphones. I genuinely feel it is okay. Our brain is developed. We can self-regulate. I don't think I think when a child says, आप देख रहे हो मैं क्यों नहीं देख सकता, I don't think that's a valid question. I would say to the child, आपकी height बड़ी नहीं हो रही है, आपकी height बड़ी हो रही है, मेरी नहीं हो रही है. So I can see because my brain is developed, your brain is still developing, you can't see. Like I have no shame in saying it. You can see only for 30 minutes, I can see for 4 hours. That is how it is. And I think that we don't need to be apologetic to our children for it. So I asked this 15-year-old that, do you see phone for so long? Is it hard for you to resist? She said, yes. And so I told the family that you are such a wonderful family, that your child has actually come with you, is sitting with you, is agreeing with this, what this is happening. So, you have a connection that is very apparent. And I think that is the magic thing, that your child is more, even though child is not able to resist the phone, they have more connection with the parent than with the mobile. And when I saw Adolescence, the series, at the end of it, I wrote something. Please. And it was that, what I wrote was lessons from adolescence. And I said that I will not let my child below the age of 16 have access to social media. I will replace my child's smartphone with a feature phone, with a smartwatch, with a laptop. I will not be bullied by my own guilt when my child says everyone has it. I will not think to myself, oh, I am giving it for studying. If my child feels left out of groups because he is unable to chat with his friend after school, I will explain to my child why that is okay. If my child is quiet, I will not think of that as okay. I will not think kids nowadays are like that only. I will find time for my child, time to connect, time to chat. I will not work with my imaginary child. I don't want a child who is good at what I want them to be good at, like boxing, football. I will see what my child enjoys doing. I will see my real child, not my imaginary child. I am responsible for my child. I love my child.
Beautiful, beautiful. Huge round of applause, please, Harpreet. That is very, very thoughtful. Very, very nicely said. I have to wrap up, but not before asking this last question. To be a more present parent today requires work.
It requires work.
It requires a lot of work. It requires building up a lot of other skills as well. What my worry is that in order to do that, more and more women will have to take the lead, and more women will then lead to outside of the workforce. Is the key here then to try and not just talk about parenting, but try and talk about fatherhood first?
Yes, and why is it that the women have to take the time off? Not at all. It's a responsibility of both the parents. And I can say that, vouch for it from my own experience, that I think that both of us, me and my wife, have been working parents all through. And we have, given our capabilities, our interests, the connect that we share with our child, we have divided responsibility. And it is an equal duty and responsibility of both parents to find the mind space, to find the resources within and in their immediate vicinity to be able to give to their child. And it definitely takes work. It has to have investment of your energy, of your mind, and other resources that you have. And you have to prioritize parenting as one of the top things that you do. Indeed, in my opinion, if you are engaged with your children as they grow, you grow as parents, as human beings. And that is the most wonderful thing, actually. It's challenging. And of course, I'll wait to hear from you, Harpreet, as your kid becomes a teenager, and how many of these plans work, because sometimes they don't. And you have to work on, you have to constantly think on your feet. And that is what challenges you as a human being,
Yeah.
And you're constantly growing. You're constantly confronting the realities in the world. But one of the things that you said really touched me was seeing your child as who they are. Understand that every child is wired differently, and my child is also different, unique, and we'll welcome and accept them just the way they are.
I think these are complex questions with very nuanced answers. And like I said, a perfect parent does not exist, but the journey towards reaching that is somewhat beautiful. Thank you both for joining us. I'm very glad we could have this chat as we're talking about youthful aspirations right here on Rising Bharat. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Harpreet and Dr. Amit Sen, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What an engaging and insightful discussion that was. And I think everyone here must make a promise today. Parents, future parents, to take all of these lessons back home and continue to have these open discussions in our homes, communities, and beyond. A special thank you once again to our speakers for sharing their expertise and for bringing with them all those thoughtful insights. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we're fortunate to have with us Swapan Kataria, the co-founder and CEO of Crown LNG. Swapan is a very visionary leader who has been at the forefront of empowering young minds, driving innovation and creating a more dynamic future for India. So let's grab this opportunity to learn from one of the leading voices in this space and get inspired by Mr. Swapan's perspective on what it truly means to have an empowered youth and an energized nation. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kataria to the stage. I would also like to call on stage Palki Sharma, who will be taking this conversation forward.
Namaskar, good morning, and welcome to this session. Joining me as introduced is Mr. Swapan Kataria, co-founder and CEO of Crown LNG, and we will talk about energy security, and how it can help empower India's growth. Mr. Kataria, first of all, thank you for being here. And India is the world's most populous country, also among the youngest. So the energy need is only going to grow, and yet energy poverty is very real in our country. How do we bridge this gap between the demographic dividend and this lack of access, equitable access to energy? And how does LNG fit into the picture?
Palki, first of all, thanks for having me. And energy is a very complex subject. I don't disagree with you. I think India needs to address it on every front. For 1.4 billion people and growing, we need every kind of energy that is out there. LNG is only one aspect of it. We have coal. Everybody, I'm sure, has heard about solar and wind. I don't think there's anybody in the world who hasn't thought of being green. But at the end of the day, I think one of the major players in the future that I see in India is nuclear power. So if you mix all of them and the new technologies that we haven't even seen yet would probably come out mostly in storage that I see, I think added together, India needs to grow on every front. It should not be that, oh, you know, we have solar growing and not focusing on LNG, LNG growing and not focusing on coal, coal growing and not focusing on nuclear. I think all of them have to move forward together if we really want to grow.
Right, but there's so much talk and focus, talk more than focus on renewable energy. Yet you're talking about LNG. So is LNG, according to you, a bridge fuel, or is that a long-term bet that we'll have to make?
I think it's the latter, in my belief. I probably sound biased because I'm from the industry, but at the end of the day, in my 30-year career, I've seen solar and wind grow a lot, and they're here to stay. I'm not saying we're taking anything away from that. But at the end of the day, for India, we need on-demand power. You cannot grow jobs and help the youth without industry, and you cannot build industry without on-demand power. And for you know, the capabilities that nature has in its own hands, you cannot guarantee that with solar and wind, unfortunately. So you have to look at coal, you have to look at LNG, and you have to look at nuclear.
Right, and for a country like India, where the demand is so big, where we have, at a policy level, committed to sustainable development, and yet at the same time we have a very ambitious growth target. It's not an easy balance to have. 75% of our energy comes from coal. Do you think that in the near future it would be possible for India to decouple from coal?
I don't think so. An honest acceptance. Of course, we have to work responsibility to grow less, and I think we have to focus on technologies like carbon capture. If you wanted to run a diesel-fired plant in the mountainous region, or you do a coal-fired plant, if you were capturing every ounce of that carbon coming out, not creating any atmospheric carbon at all, that could be a huge solution. I don't see India working towards carbon capture at all. No, I shouldn't say at all, but not at the pace it should be. Maybe that is a different aspect that we should think about, just from a different angle.
Right. And you mentioned nuclear energy, and that is something that a lot of countries are increasingly turning to. How do you see India in that space, and what sort of progress, according to you, have we made, and what are the points that we need to focus on?
So I think if you ask me from the outside, I'm not a nuclear physicist or something, but I have a simple logic because I've been in the industry for so long. I think India's dependence on nuclear is limited because of the participation of uranium, which India does not have, and it's very difficult to enrich it. So you're ultimately going to be dependent on the US or Russia or Canada, whoever has that uranium. But India does have thorium. So there are nuclear technologies out there which India can develop indigenously, and I don't think there's enough focus doing it. Honestly, I think there should be. The other thing that I see where you say transition fuel for LNG, I think nuclear plants take a long time to happen. And they're not that simple to just create overnight. So is LNG going to play a role over the next 10, 20, maybe even 30 years? I see it 100%, yes.
Energy security, of course, is an economic issue and imperative. It's also a geopolitical issue. There's a reason why we call it a strategic asset. And geopolitics is changing at a rapid pace. How do countries like India, which are dependent on energy sources from outside in a big way, ensure that while their demands are met, their sovereignty is not compromised?
Very difficult question to answer, but let me try. So when we think about energy security, we always use energy security as two words in the same sentence, but security could be in different aspects. You need a tank, you need a plane, you need defense, you need missiles, you need so many other things for defense. Energy, on the other hand, adds value to security from a geopolitical standpoint. It helps you kind of, keep working with your friends rather than your enemies. And then once you get dependent on them, it's very difficult to pick a fight with them. It's like getting married. It's not easy to take a divorce. And when you do, it always leaves a trauma. So I think India will have to choose its LNG partners or coal partners or nuclear partners very carefully. But I still feel coal and nuclear, India can do it on its own. LNG is something it cannot. But it has to be a part of that energy mix. Because there are areas, there are specific requirements where every industry will be needing different kind of fuel. Because if you wanted to do something in Kashmir, for example, it's very difficult to take a gas pipeline there in the mountains. So you would need a different kind of electricity plant or a power generation unit in Kashmir as compared to something closer to the shore where you can develop larger industry which will need maybe coal or gas. So it will be very region specific and demand specific. So if let's say Assam comes along and says, oh, I need to grow industry in Assam or Kashmir comes along, I don't think it's easy for them to get gas. So we're not focusing on targeting our marketing there, for example, but the nuclear would be great if it can work there.
That was the premise of globalization, one of the many, that if you have money at stake, if you are linked to each other through businesses, then you will not pick a fight. But we've seen that being uprooted over the past few years, first between Ukraine and Russia, and energy was what linked them, Ukraine, Russia and Europe, more like. And then we are seeing what we are seeing in terms of the tariffs that are being imposed across the world. This is a particularly complicated matter because you cannot build these supply lines overnight. You cannot even end them overnight. It takes years of investment and effort to do it. In this current scenario of flux, what would be your advice to policymakers?
I think, as I said earlier, indigenous technologies need to be grown. Like even for us, if we're in the LNG business and we operate in various countries in Asia and Africa and South America and Europe, and we see that, India is not doing enough to grow its own technology. So if I had to make a plant, I need a compressor, I need a power plant, I need some special alloys which can take minus 165 degrees of, liquid, which is LNG. So they're not available in India. So I think the industry is not being able to grow. If it was available in India and Indian government was doing enough to create those patented technologies within India, it would certainly have less dependence on overseas.
Indeed. Let's talk jobs now. How can LNG and the broader energy sector become engines of employment for the Indian youth? And we need a lot of jobs in this country.
Actually, it just baffles my mind. Most of the kids that I meet, they want to go into IT. They want to move their keyboards. And the real jobs are in the energy sector, in the oil and gas sector. People don't find that working for an oil and gas company maybe is that, glamorous. I think that the mindset has to change. Even if you look at most of the colleges and universities, they have petroleum courses, very limited universities have them. I think that skill set development has to be there because, we are having, power plants which don't have skill set available for people to run it today because there are not that many youngsters going into that field. So I don't think the government can do it alone though. I think the private sector and the government have to work together to get that skill set up. And I think there are tons of jobs. This is one of the biggest booming sectors for jobs, and the young people should be training themselves into nuclear, into gas, into coal, into power sector, into ancillary industries which can operate on these, related to these energy industries.
Is that a conversation that you've initiated as a leader in this space? Because from what I understand, the current government has put a lot of focus on skill development. We've had a ministry in place for more than a decade now, and you think that there's a skill gap to engage the Indian youth in the energy sector. Is that a conversation that's even happening?
We are trying to rock the boat wherever we can. I don't think we get too many responses, but if we, shake 10 trees, we might be seeing maybe 1 or 2 of them move. But I think 9 of them should be moving, actually.
I agree. Is there room for the Indian youth to innovate? Because the buzzword is startups now. Everyone's talking about a startup. But this seems like a very capital-intensive, legacy sort of a business or an industry to be in. Is there an opportunity for a young person who comes with, like you said, homegrown solutions or technology or in the startup space? Can people do stuff here?
I think the youth of India is the most powerful youth that I've seen anywhere in the world. not that I might be biased because I'm from India, but at the end of the day, when I come back, I see that, you know, if I had been born 10, 20 years later, it would have been much better, because you get an ecosystem of so much energy in people and in kids these days, and I think they don't have that support mechanism which they need to grow. Because in order to, it's easy to say that there is a startup community in India, but it has to be nurtured, right? Not just nurtured by helping them get orders, getting them also trade finance, and I think one of the biggest missing pieces that I see between startup and realization into commercial activities is the capital aspect of it. And I don't think there's enough capital being spent. There are few people that I've seen in the private sector doing whatever they can in their own world, but I don't think that's enough. I think there has to be a centered focus on startups from the government, where, let's say, you know, if I were to be an investment office, for example, you know, give me a tax rebate. I'll invest it in there. So I don't know if there's enough being done to nurture those startups. Yes, they're being given a huge promise that, okay, do it, you get a 5-year tax rebate. But I don't think after that there's anybody hand-holding them to make them into an industry.
Yeah, so you're saying we need more mentorship, and we need more incentives, of course, but more mentorship.
100%.
Right. When we talk about infrastructure or policy making, one of the challenges that we see in countries like India is the urban-rural divide, and that applies to energy as well. Energy access. We are heading into a summer that looks, by all indications, is going to be a punishing summer. How do we bridge this divide in the energy space?
I think the only way to bridge it is having better planning. This summer is not happening this year alone, Palki. It's been happening for years. And the bureaucracy is still thinking, oh, you know, we can't move this because that has not happened, and that cannot happen because this guy didn't say anything. We have to give up those excuses and just take a call. And somebody up there has to put its foot down and say, okay, enough is enough. We've looked at this for 10 regular years. The summer's growing. It's getting tougher. We take every kind of energy at whatever cost we get at the end of the day in an emergency. It almost is an emergency situation. But if we planned 10 years ago, we wouldn't be in this situation today. But if we don't do something today, we'll be in this situation tomorrow.
And okay, I'll go back a few questions. You were talking about young people entering the space. We have a reasonably young audience as well here. Why don't you share your story with us, and why did you decide to go into the energy business of all things, and what has your journey been like?
I think I was actually living in Russia when I entered the energy space back in 1993. And I was in the trading business, and you know, I fell into a trading contract which was related to trading crude oil. And it was very profitable, and I never looked back after that. But that being said, I think if there was one thing that people should think, that energy sector is not just crude. It has such a vast footprint in our daily lives. It's not funny. You have to actually take a moment. A lot of people don't spend the time to look at oil and gas sector because, as I said, they don't consider that glamorous. I don't know. Maybe, you know, if I was in the oil sector, would I get a better date? Maybe that would be the way to look at it for the younger person. But I think from a stability and a job perspective, energy projects are very good. They have a long gestation period, and when they operate 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So I don't think there's any other industry which offers a better job security than the oil and gas industry.
I think that's a strong pitch.
Yeah. I have supported that. I've seen it. For me, it was looking at, okay, how much is time to money. Okay, the IT sector looks very fancy because, you know, everybody thinks that, you know, there's a Silicon Valley out there. But this is day to day. You need this every day. This is not services industry. It is actual products being made which affect and you know, get utilized in our daily lives.
And like you said, you've traveled the world. You've worked with different countries, companies, and of course you've worked very closely with players and partners in India. How have you seen the landscape change in India over the last decade when it comes to building better supply lines, ensuring more energy security for the people of the country? In
simple words, I think there is improvement. But if I expand on it, I don't think there's improvement enough. And I'll give you an example, and I hate doing it because I don't think I ever want to compare ourselves with China. But China had the similar kind of population, and they already knew they're in the same situation. They don't have oil and they don't have gas. At least not enough to cater to their own people. In fact, I think India has more gas than China. But what they did was they went out and started buying gas fields globally. So they started investing into those gas fields so they can control the volatility of price for the demand in electricity, and ultimately the gas fills that electricity requirement. So we started, because we had access to, or we have access. So when you look at India and you want to bring LNG into the country, you have to go through a very rigorous process which has been put together by the Indian government to actually go and enlist and get approved for a license to import product into India. So at the moment, Crown LNG is establishing a project in Kakinada in Andhra Pradesh, which is 7.2 million tons per annum, and which is approximately 10 to 11% of India's total import licenses available today. So when the larger, hyperscalers, they wanted to put these things here, they approached us and said, hey, we need access to on-demand power. We cannot survive on solar and wind, because what if there's no electricity? Then it's not like we cannot operate our data center. So that is how we started our first conversations with them, and we realized that how important on-demand power is. And it's not just about running a data center. Then we started getting into complexities that, does your data center have double redundancy, a triple redundancy, or a quadruple redundancy? So now, not only that, if you need a 200 megawatts power plant, for example, they want you to build 600 or 800 megawatts of power for it. They'll use only 200, but the other one should be standby. If the one, conks off, the second one starts working. So when you start thinking of that much of built-in optionality, you start thinking about that kind of a cost infrastructure. We felt that it's something which we can certainly support, and that's what got us into the AI.
That's very interesting, actually. And the way you put it, one would have thought that that's common sense and most people would do it, but I'm surprised that it's not happening.
I thought the same before I got into it.
Right. Swapan Kataria, thank you very much for your insights and for your policy prescriptions that we hope reach the right people and trigger the changes that need to be made.
Well, I'm always here to help if they need me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being such a fabulous audience.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
A huge thank you to Mr. Kataria once again for this very incredible session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Palki. And to all of you for being such an engaged audience as we continue to build an environment where our youth are not only inspired but given the tools and the opportunities to make a lasting impact. And with that, let's transition to something that's turned into a hot topic. Not now, since quite some time. In recent years, though, weight loss has become a popular subject that has drawn great interest with the rise of various diet trends, fitness regimens, and of course, weight loss medications. Today, a select panel of experts will help us unravel the complexities of weight loss medications, from understanding how these drugs work to exploring their effectiveness and potential side effects. We will be covering a range of important topics and issues to guide anyone looking to better understand this trending topic of discussion and debate. So without further delay, let's dive into this crucial conversation. Please join me in welcoming Winslow Tucker, President and General Manager, Eli Lilly and Company, India, and Dr. Chandrakant Laharia, Public Health Policy Strategist. May I also invite Sonal to once again take this conversation forward.
All right, almost good afternoon there, and we are back this time with another fascinating chat. I think if there's one thing that connects us all in this room, no matter your age, no matter your gender, no matter your nationality, is our health. And it is so important to sort of address that at the Rising Bharat Summit here, where we're talking about youthful aspirations. I'm so thrilled to have our panelists here with us on stage who've taken out the time to discuss about this topic, which a lot of people are talking about, but very few know about. There is a lot of information, not so much that is true. So over the next few minutes, the idea is to decode the science behind weight loss drugs. The idea is also to understand who is it for. And the idea is also to get a better grip on how to approach this as a society, as a nation. So let me take the first question to Dr. Laheria then. Dr. Laheria, we are the obesity capital in so many ways. Our numbers are almost there in the top 3. At this time when weight loss drugs should in a way be like if it were any other disease, it would be celebrated that finally there is a cure. Why is it that we are looking at these drugs as you're not sure what is it for or what's happening? So can you begin by first defining what have we understood wrong about obesity in general?
Thank you very much. So one of the important development in last decade has been, or last decade and more so in the last few years, has been that we have started recognizing obesity is a health issue, a health condition or disease which require treatment, care, management. And these are important conversation because if we go by the numbers, in 1 in every 4 adult in India is either overweight or obese. And there are other ways to look at it. For example, if we talk about generalized obesity, that is 1 in every 4 adult, but abdominal obesity, which is an important risk factor and parameter to measure obesity, is 1 in every 3rd adult. And another approach to look at it, which has implications in terms of heart disease and other, is dyslipidemia. So the level of cholesterol and lipids are deranged in 1 in every 5 adults. So these numbers are worrying and they all come from extra fat in the body. So first point, if we talk about the important part is that we have lately started recognizing that obesity is something which requires care.
But if Dr. Laheria, you could tell us the difference between being fat and being obese.
Well, that's a very interesting point, and that's why I gave a longish introduction. So the point is that there are a range of definitions for obesity, and for long, the approach which was used as a body mass index. So WHO said that more than 25 is overweight, more than 30 of body mass index is obesity. But over a period of time, this definition has changed and they are contextual also. For example, Asian Indians, there is a concept called thin fat Indian, which means for the same body mass level as of European, Indians and Asian population has a higher body fat. And the composition of body fat is a major factor in it. So the definition keeps changing. For India, the definition was always lower, BMI. But more recently, some of the Indian definition has come, which say that anyone who has a body mass index more than 23 is obese, which is stage 1 or stage 2 obesity. That definition has come. But I want to delve briefly into this. So there are new other parameters to look at obesity. For example, your waist circumference. For the male, it should not be more than 90 centimeter. For female, it should not be more than 80 centimeter. There are other approach to waist circumference to height ratio. The waist circumference in the centimeter, if you divide height in centimeters, should be less than 0.5. So multiple parameters are coming up, and now globally there is a discourse going on that it should be preclinical and clinical obesity. But finally, coming to the key part, I am really pleasantly happy as a medical doctor and public policy specialist that the societal norm which normalize obesity as just a well-fed individual is changing. We people across India and policy making have started recognizing that obesity or overweight is a health condition, which is a risk factor in itself, but also a disease condition. And final point I would like to make is that this discourse is really important because that's where we can start making difference.
I'm glad you brought it up because I think we are finally at that stage where the education or perhaps the definition is becoming more nuanced. Is no longer somebody just looking a particular type fit. Being lean does not mean being fit. Similarly, being fat does not mean that you are so-called unfit. But a lot of people struggle with other issues as well. I'll come to that in a bit. Let me bring in Mr. Tucker there. Then, when it comes to weight loss drugs, I think the most pertinent issue is that people see it as a magic pill. What is it that they are missing here?
So I think first it's important to note that it's not a magic pill, right? It's also not for lifestyle. It's not for a vanity tool. These are medications that are approved for use with a prescription, and therefore a chronic disease, which is obesity, right? We had a definition of obesity, and I think it's important to note that when someone is overweight or obese, their body is set a new level of weight. We call that like a set point. And so the body wants to maintain that set point. And when we think about these medications, they operate on two different levels, right? They target incretin hormones, and there are two, GLP-1 and GIP. And so they either target those individually or both at the same time. And what they do is they work on a brain level to regulate appetite, regulate hormones, regulate metabolism. And so over time, the body then perceives hunger differently, food intake differently, which allows patients to lose weight. But importantly, over time, it also resets that weight set point so that the body's not working against the patient and that they can actually maintain long-term weight reduction. Now, it's also important to note that they also impact glucose control, which is sometimes dysregulated in patients who have obesity. And so there are metabolic benefits as well that go beyond just weight loss. And so, once again, they are prescription products that work best when they are used with lifestyle changes as well as under medical supervision, and they need to be tailored for the individual patient. But once again, not a magic pill, but part of a comprehensive weight management program.
A comprehensive weight management program. Dr. Lahiriya, then I want to understand from you, then who is it for? The question I think in the audience is going to be, can everybody take it? Can only diabetics take it? How does it work?
Well, I would go overall holistic approach for weight management. And let's understand, let's put a human face to it. That while we keep talking about overweight and obesity in adults, but if we go by the numbers, when it comes to children, India has one of the fastest rising burden of obesity in children, like one of the fastest in the means top three countries are the Namibia and Vietnam are other two, and this has increased rapidly. But let's put a human face to it. I often engage with some of the senior medical doctors as a researcher. And I was hearing one of the senior doctors who said that 3 decades ago when they were trying to conduct a survey in school children, it was very difficult to find overweight and obese children 3 decades ago. So they were wondering whether they would be able to complete the study. And now in these times, if someone wished to do study in school children, you find many school children who are unhealthy. I work closely with certain number of schools, and I was talking to some principals, and they said that these days parents send such an unhealthy food or other things in the school tiffin for the kids, which is resulting in this rising obesity. I know that there is one of the discussion panel in this session was about screen time and exposure to social media, and all of this is bringing reduced physical activity in kids. The play time is reduced. So essentially, these narration indicate that if we want to take control of obesity, we need to follow a holistic approach. This requires three-pronged approach minimum. And this is what I tell for all the lifestyle diseases, all the health conditions, not just obesity. Any condition, health condition which is lifestyle originated has 3 treatment or interventions. One is increased physical activity. Second is a dietary modification. And third is medication. Even if a medication is available, that is not the solution unless we pay attention on the first 2. And these 3 points are important because if the moment we start thinking of any available medication, which is important because if science is there, research is there, we need to keep developing newer intervention and medications to ensure that people who are not getting benefit from the first 2 will benefit from it. But all 3 together makes an good care. And Sonalji, that's where I want to highlight that we often keep focusing on treatment, which is important part. Medical advance should benefit everyone, but we should also keep looking at holistically. Increase physical activity, improve dietary pattern, and then available medication for all the patients. This final point here is that this essentially makes that often people argue that obesity is an individual issue. They believe that, okay, if someone is overweight, obese, it's their fault. I believe that this is a societal issue because there is a higher economic burden of obesity. If as a society people are overweight or obese, that has an economic cost in the terms of healthcare. It has a cost in the reduced workforce capacity in the terms of sick time or absence from the work. And there are estimates available in 2019, this World Obesity Federation data. In 2019, around 1% of India's GDP was equivalent, was loss on the obesity-related challenges, absence from work. So it is worthwhile to invest in every intervention, including medication, increasing physical activity, dietary intervention. This will help economic growth, and this will help in any country becoming a developing or prosperous nation. Yeah. So obesity has multiple dimensions, and I can keep talking about these.
Yeah, we let you. That's the whole point of this discussion. But I'm so glad you brought that up. Because I think, and Mr. Tucker, if you can take that question. In a society where physical transformation has to be more led by work and hard work, and natural transformation is glorified so much, what role and what larger role are weight loss drugs then, sort of playing there?
So one thing that I want to start with is saying is that, I'm actually very happy that we're having this conversation, and that obesity is starting to get the attention that it deserves in India, right? We want to provide gratitude to the Prime Minister and also to media for raising this, because it's a critically important issue. Now, weight loss drugs overall are part, as you said, of that overall management. And I think that we have to change the narrative around weight loss if we really want to address it. You're right, it is around not just lifestyle, it's around lifestyle and a comprehensive approach. But we also have to recognize that there is a bit of a stigma on weight loss, and that patients who have obesity or who are living with overweight every day are addressing this stigma. And until we start to change that, we're not going to actually have patients or individuals who are living with obesity actually seeking some of these treatments. Now, where I think that these medicines can change that is it's starting to change the view of how we think about obesity. It's not just about blame, it's really about biology, right? We know that there's a different way you need to address this, and I think that's critically important. I think also that, as you talked about, we have to be really cognizant that this is part of that comprehensive approach, and that if we do that over time, we'll start to see patients come forward and feel more comfortable in seeking treatment.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because the follow-up to that, Mr. Tucker, is that what is the biology of obesity? Yeah. I think the needle needs to shift on not just what is weight loss, but first we need to be very clear on what is obesity, yeah, and how do we tackle that. So what is the biology there?
So I'm not the medical expert, so I'm not going to talk about the biology specifically. What I can tell you of how these medicines actually impact that biology, okay? So as I started to talk about earlier, we know that a lot of things change when a patient is obese, right? How they perceive their satiety, how they perceive their appetite, their body is working against them, so they continue to increase. What these products do is they act both on the mental side, so they change how you perceive being full, they change how you perceive that your appetite, and so that reduces. It also works on the level of slowing their gastric emptying as well. So what that means is you feel full sooner and for longer, and so therefore your appetite changes as well, right? The last point, which I think is really important, is that it kind of changes that set point. I keep talking about the set point because your body's working against you. After you lose weight, your body wants to gain weight. This helps your body to kind of be at that next level where you can continue over time. And we have to recognize, to your point, that's why it's so important that is part of this comprehensive piece, because you have to have lifestyle changes and along with the medicine to have the best outcome. Last thing I will say is this one thing about this, which I think is really important. We talked a lot about obesity, and you were saying, like, how is it different? I think we want to change the conversation from just obesity to better health, right? Because ultimately, these products will help patients to not progress to some of those long-term complications like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dyslipidemia, that really impact their overall health and cost to the system. And so I think if we start to change that stigma, we can actually have a broader
I think that's
impact.
very important, and I'm glad you brought it up. But just to expand on that, and if Dr. Lahiriya can also come in on this biology of obesity and how it works here, because a lot of people still feel that, oh, just take these injections and that's it. That's all you got to do. I don't need to hit the gym. I don't need to put in that extra hours. It'll control my appetite, and that's that. Can you sort of drop some truth bombs there?
See, across the world, and most of the guidelines from Endocrinology Society, other society, categorically say that the first line of management is a dietary modification and lifestyle changes, increased physical activity. And one of the component in that is anti-obesity medication. So these are definitely entire gamut of things, but not the first line. That's part one. Second part is that these are prescription-only medicines which are provided by a medical doctor based upon individual case-to-case discussion with the patient. There are standard laid down approaches and guidelines that who is the fit right person for getting these medications. So my suggestion would be, please, anyone thinking of these medications, consult your physician or provider. This is not something, I know it's available for some people without prescription, but this is not what should be done. It should be prescription only approach that should be followed. Going back to your previous question, and often people complain that, oh, we have tried increasing physical activity or dietary modification, it is not working. Shall we go for it? Possibly yes, but consult a physician. That will be my advice. Part of this, I would like to briefly reflect about biology of it. So as we know that our body has essential roles of hunger and satiety. There are hormones which are released from intestine or your brain when you are hungry. And then once you start eating, there are hormones which are released from intestine which send the message that you are, your satiety status has reached. But what has happened, and some of this is genetic and biological, but what has happened in today's lifestyle, when you eat very fast, so there is not enough time in your intestine and brain to register that message that you have eaten this much, and then you keep eating. So changing in the lifestyle is one of the factors. Of course, there are people, for example, I would say that there are people who have tried all of these things. There are some excess weight, like BMI, certain BMI threshold which is crossed. For them, if a prescriber suggests, and these are the medications which can wonder, and we know that we now have medications which can reduce 15 to 20% of the weight over a period of 3 to 6 months. But I'm again warning that this is something that doctor-based, prescription-based approach which need to be followed. And even if you are being prescribed medications, there is definitely a role of lifestyle modification, physical activity, and other aspects.
But let's look at the other side of the spectrum then. And I want to understand the struggle. So many people I know today are struggling to shed weight. So many people I know today are trying everything. They lose weight, but then it comes back. How should they be approaching this? Dr. Lahiriya, to you first.
This would be again an individual one-to-one question, but often...
I say this, you know why? Just to sort of build in a context here. Because we as a society shame people who don't look a particular way. We as a society want that perfect Instagram filtered face and body. So how are we to approach that problem?
So I'm going to talk about some certain approaches to, for example, when we talk about a medical provider about improving dietary habits. Essentially for me, when I talk to my patients, I say that diet has a 3 component. One is a quantity. If you are overweight, obese, definitely you are taking more calorie than you need. So reduce the quantity of that meal. That's the part one of the meal, and that's often people discuss. But then second component of that is the quality of the meal. If you are taking high sugars, packaged food, ultra-processed food, that's a problematic. And if you have extra oil and fat, that is problematic. So you need to alter quality of the meal, which essentially means reduce fat, reduce carbohydrate, and increase protein. So first part was the reduce quantity, second is improve quality of a meal, third is the sequencing of meal also, the way you eat, how quickly and how slowly you eat. So I just gave you an example of that, how the same meal or same approach which they are following, but bringing the nuance to it. Another approach to it is, for example, there are many patients who are overweight and obese. Definitely, in very likelihood, they would have a fatty liver. Now, what people do not understand that why fat is a problem. I tell them, and this is the unscientific reason, that anything which should not be somewhere, if it's there, it is problematic. So when your body has extra fat, it gets deposited in liver, viscera, other organs, other places. And since it should not be, for example, it should not be in the liver, and it is a fat there, then your liver starts recognize that's a foreign antigen. So it starts inflammation. And inflammation means your immune system gets activated, your antibodies start forming, and this results in damage to that organ. So obesity or overweight is an inflammatory condition which activates immune system, which makes you prone to multiple diseases. And that's why one of the recent Lancet paper on endocrinology and metabolism had talked about that obesity or overweight can essentially affect all the organs. But I bring you a good part of this thing. Whatever mechanism you follow, anti-obesity medication, physical activity, lifestyle, or dietary modification, if anyone, no matter what is the weight of that person, if that person can reduce 7 to 10%, let's not go to 10%. If 7% weight reduction, the first place where fat is deposited, liver, first place from where the fat will disappear is liver. And you will control many other conditions. In this round, I would say, please, once you go back, you read a common soil hypothesis. There is a scientific hypothesis which says that obesity results in lot many conditions, but it is a soil for a diabetes. Because if you have extra fat in your body, especially liver, the insulin which is produced in your body will not be able to reach to liver cells and muscle cells, and then insulin resistance will develop. You will develop diabetes. So obesity is a harbinger of many health conditions. Diabetes is one of those.
Yeah. So we've established that obesity is a chronic problem. We've established also perhaps that weight loss drugs, however, seem to be in this blanket of secrecy. There is still a very strong stigma attached to it. It's perhaps changing in the West. In India, the narrative is still different. Mr. Tucker, why do you think that is? And what can organizations like Eli Lilly do to move the needle on this conversation and this narrative?
I think that's a great point. I think that first, to my point before, first let's address the stigma of obesity itself, because I think that is keeping patients from actually seeking treatment. And as you said, this has to be a comprehensive approach. Diet, exercise, and also weight loss medications can be part of that. So I think that's the first thing. First, let's address that. And in addressing it, we have to be really cognizant that, obesity today is viewed as a personal responsibility or a lack of personal responsibility, right? That diet, exercise alone might treat that, which for some it may, but there is also
people think you're fat because you're lazy.
Correct, which is totally wrong. And then if you get past that and you start to say, can we make it safe for people to explore treatment? Because many people are embarrassed to talk about obesity, and so they don't even explore what the treatment options out there. Once we start doing that, then we can start to talk about where do weight loss medicines fit in, right? My hope is that as we start to look at where weight loss medicines fit in as a prescription drug with physician supervision, that more patients will feel free to get these products. We will see the impact of these products. We know that over time, many patients who have taken these products have gotten to a weight level and been able to maintain that. There are obviously side effects that we have to be cognizant of, but that will allow people to figure out where these can fit in and how they can help impact overall health of patients as well.
Right. So as we come towards the end of this session, I also want to address some misconceptions.
Sure.
And I'll go to Dr. Laheria first and Ms. Thakur right after. Dr. Laheria, what are some of the misconceptions, if you were to state? You can give me your top 3 on weight loss drugs.
What is the misconception of weight loss drug? Yeah. I think one of the misconceptions is that weight loss drugs are magic remedies. As already said, that they are one of the tools available in hand. And they are important tools which we should use as per medical principles.
On the whole, and this entire, on the medical infrastructure on the whole?
I think, as I think about India and this vision of a healthy India, I think that these weight loss drugs hopefully change the conversation around just obesity and weight, more to health, and how we can improve health so that individuals can achieve their best level of health. And I think that is a comprehensive approach. It is addressing the fundamental cause of obesity, which these drugs go to, the hormonal cause, the metabolic pieces that drive the disease, and not just the symptoms. And that we make it safe for people to talk about obesity and seek treatment, particularly with lifestyle changes, medical intervention as well, so that patients can achieve their highest level of health and we can improve society and also reduce health costs.
That's quite lovely. Dr. Laheria, then, I was going to ask you the same question, but with a different lens. We are looking at India, which is very aware now. The nation is talking about health more than ever. We also have the government coming out with initiatives which are taking and putting health at the forefront. You've got the Fit India movement. The Prime Minister talked about it in his Mann Ki Baat as well. So we seem to be moving in the right direction, or so it seems, when it comes to this entire conversation on staying fit. But what is the roadblock? What do you see as something holding us back? What I'm essentially asking you is, if the Prime Minister was listening to you right now, what would you tell him to do that can unlock the potential of how much we have developed both in the mindset and medical science on fitness?
Let me answer this in two parts. One is what we are talking about, weight loss drugs or anti-obesity medications are essentially anti-diabetes and also have a multi-organ benefits in terms of kidney health, liver health, heart health. So they are really useful medication, and that it boils down to that if you reduce weight, no matter whether by physical activity, dietary modification, or anti-obesity medication. It is going to work in multiple ways, keeping you fit. Second part on what are the roadblocks. I would flip the question. I would say there are 7 P's approach which we can do. One is that we need to focus upon preventive aspect of health. Second is we need to bring attention on promotive health. Third is prompt treatment. If you are required treatment, you go for a prompt treatment. Fourth is a policy approach. We need to have that kind of policies which support all these interventions. Fifth is everything should be done as per the need of people, people centricity in this approach. Sixth is programmatic intervention, which essentially means just do not focus upon one isolated intervention, but make it a holistic programmatic. And seventh is a partnership between public and private sector for a public purpose. So we need, if we do 7 P's, prevent, promote, prompt treatment, policy research, people centricity, programmatic approach, and partnership, it will take care of a holistic approach on our different components. Otherwise, simply focusing on medication or increasing physical activity or reducing oil is not going to work. We need to give it a shape of that where all the components are taken care of.
I think that's very well said. Thank you both for joining us on this very, very fascinating discussion. I think personally, we are at the cusp of really understanding and unlocking health and wellness in the country. And this is going to be a very, very critical piece of understanding how we approach it. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Mr. Taka and Dr. Laheria. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Sonal. This conversation indeed was a reminder of how any journey to losing weight must be undertaken in a healthy way. And now we get down to discussing 2 genius minds present amongst us here in the audience. Youngsters who have captured the imagination of scholars and mathematicians around the world. We're in for an incredible session today as we are about to hear from 2 extraordinary young minds who are redefining the boundaries of intellectual achievement. First, we have amongst us Vishwa Rajkumar, a 20-year-old memory champion who recently won the prestigious Memory League World Championship. Vishwa has set new benchmarks for whatever is possible in the world of memory sports. And joining him is Aryan Shukla, a 14-year-old prodigy known as the human calculator, and we'll hear more from him. But he has amazed audiences worldwide with his lightning-fast mental arithmetic skills. Let's get ready to be inspired by 2 masterminds who are joining us here. And welcome, let's welcome Vishwa Rajkumar and Aryan Shukla to the stage. Toya Singh, my colleague, will be taking this conversation forward.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, lovely to have you here. We have 2 young men with us, and the reason we're standing is because we're going to spend the first few minutes actually showing you something. Then we'll do the discussion we're going to do. Let me just tell our audiences, we told everyone about your achievements, but I just want to introduce them once again to our audiences. Right here we have Aryan. Aryan, you're just going to be showing us some mathematics. He's the person who we said was a human calculator. I don't know if you like that description or not, so we'll talk about that in a second. And right after that, we'll go over to Vishwa. And Vishwa is the person who is incredible at remembering things. So we're actually going to show you both of their skills first. Sabko thoda jaga denge with these really, really cool skills. And after that, we're going to ask you some more questions. Okay? So first, we're both going to sit down, Vishwa, and Aryan, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, screen.
We're going to actually pull it up on the screen behind.
Yeah. So basically this subject is called Flash and Zan, where numbers will flash on the screen and we have to add them. So basically this is a demo of it. So now these are the 3 parameters. First one is the digits. So basically how many digits would flash? Like there is 1 digit, that means it will be 1, 2 till 9. There is the duration in seconds for per number. So here it's 1.0. That means one number, 1 second, means in 1 second, one number. And third is the problem numbers, means how many numbers will flash.
What is a problem number? Just
Means,
explain.
how many numbers will flash, like
Okay.
10 numbers, 100.
ठीक
So now this thing should be tried by everyone in the audience on the stage. So and tell the answers after it. So let's start.
So we have to remember those numbers, add them, subtract them. He's concentrating.
So had anyone got the answer? Yeah.
Love it.
So 57. Yeah. So that's what right number. In 1 second there will be more than 3 numbers. So now we will do it again. So has anyone got? Yeah. 55. Yeah. So now we will increase the digits. Means now there will be 2 digits like 10, 11 till 99. So let's start. The answer is 671. Yeah. Now we will again increase the digits and keep the speed and the problem number same. Let's start. The answer is 4990. Let's compare. Yeah. So now we will show. So now we will again increase the digits, and here we will, instead of doing 10, we will do 100. So let's try. The answer is 5, 5, 2, 0, 8, 9. Let's compare. Again. The answer is 5, 6, 0, 1, 5, 8.
Wow.
Yes.
Can I ask you to sit now? And Haran, I have to tell you, it's so cool to watch everyone just looking at the stage and trying to calculate, and all of us realizing that your brain is just leagues ahead of all
Thank
of us.
you.
Now, someone who can, I don't want to say give you competition, because this is not a competition at all. But Vishwa, if we could now also see your skill, because it's a different set of skills. And then we're going to come back to both of you with more questions on how all of this works. And we're also, if anyone in the audience is blown away and has a question or two, we're going to try to leave some time for that. But Vishwa, please, if we could ask you first to also show, because Vishwa's skills are memory based. So do you want to show us how your skills work?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, let's go ahead. We're just going to pull up something on the screen right now. Okay, so on the screen, let me just check if they're ready. We're going to be pulling up a sequence of numbers.
Wait, one second. Can I stand?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead. Do what makes you comfortable.
So before starting, I'm asking, how many digits can a person memorize within a minute or so?
Shout out a number.
Can you memorize anyone here 100 digits by just seeing them once? No, right? Okay. So as I'm on stage, I'll try to do a bit slow, but still, I hope it would impress everyone. Okay. Can we start? Yeah. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I memorized them. So I'm going to recite them in order. You can check it. 3729, 6135, 7515, 1467, 4520, 0867, 3618, 1954, 8153, 1144, 5672, 9961, 4955, 6473, 1343, 1988, 2567, 0925, 3398, 7810, 7173, 4540, 5175, 4303, 8429. Thank you. I did it a bit slow, but my personal record, which I broke in World Championship, which happened online, I memorized 80 random digits in just 13 seconds, which is almost like 6 digits per second. Thank you.
So, you know how our parents always tell us ki pani piyo? So, one very crucial part of your process is drinking water. So, you'll always see Vishwa with a can of water next to him or a bottle of water. You've talked about how being hydrated is important. A reminder to everyone, there are jars of water on your table. Piyo, pani. Let's go ahead. All right. So the other thing we thought we would do very quickly is I'll very quickly give Vishwa a list of words. Oh, we can hear the satisfying snap of cans of water opening right now. But I thought we'd give you a list of words. Because what he just did was with numbers, but he can also do this with words. So we're going to give him 20 words. And we're not going to ask him to repeat them to us till this conversation is done. Okay? So we're going to ask him lots of deep questions and let's see uske baad remember karte ya nahi. You're ready, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the list of words, and I am a normal human, so I could not remember them. I hope that's all right. Is dog.
Dog.
Grass.
Grass.
Helix.
Heels.
Helix. Like a DNA helix.
Yeah, okay. Helix.
Yeah. Chewing gum.
Chewing gum.
Rocket.
Rocket.
Flamingo.
Flamingo.
54.
54. Boys.
Crease.
Grease.
Chips. Filibuster.
Filibuster. Okay, filmbuster, okay.
Swimsuit.
Bus.
Saliva.
Continuum. What does it mean?
Continuing.
Bakri.
Pagdi. जो सर पे पहनते हैं ना, पगड़ी.
Okay.
You're okay with the different language there?
No.
Okay. We'll discover.
Yeah, okay.
Lemon. Disappointment. Cadbury's. And fiscal stimulus.
What is the last word?
Fiscal stimulus.
I don't understand what is it.
Should we just go with fiscal?
Fiscal.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fiscal is, I wanted to mix up the different categories of words. So let's see. ठीक है? अभी नहीं, at the end of this conversation. So we'll come back to him at the end. So let's come to both of you and ask you a little bit more. Now, Arun, if we could come to you first to ask you a little bit about the technique that you use. So you couldn't see this, but he was turned there and he was actually moving his hands. And it looked like you were moving an abacus. Is that, an abacus is that wooden thing with beads on it. Is that what you were doing? Am I making, because I often see people in these championships moving their hands. Is that what's going on?
Yes. So basically in Flash Azan we generally use abacus techniques.
Flash Azan is what it's called. I
Yes.
just wanted to repeat that.
Yeah.
What is that? Why is it called that?
Flash means numbers flashing
of course.
and Azan means numbers.
Huh.
So it flash numbers. So it's in different language.
In Arabic, Azan means numbers in Arabic. What language?
Azan, Turkish.
Okay.
So this basically abacus technique is used to solve Flash Azan. Also, there are many techniques from Vedic maths and mathematics which are used to solve other subjects, which we'll be discussing about, like multiplication, square roots, division, calendar, and more.
So tell me a little bit more about the Vedic maths. I want to double click on that. In the last few years, so by last few years I mean a decade and a half, India, you have tuition centers, for example, that will teach Kumon, which is one method. You have Vedic maths that's kind of re-entered into public life. Of all of these techniques, what's your process been to discovering them? So both your parents are here today. Did one of them guide you through that process? How did you decide ye karna hai? Because I just want to tell everyone here, he's 14 years old. So how old were you when you decided this is what I want to do?
So from childhood, I love to play with numbers. So when I was of age of 6, I started doing mental calculations, learning mental calculations. So I started to learn these techniques. Means my parents taught me, or we searched about the many sources. Like these methods are easily available on many sources. So I started learning them, and then I learned and get a mastery, means not mastery, but started getting good at it. And then we searched about more competitions and the programs which happen, and then I started to take part in them, participate in that competitions. From 2018 I started doing that.
Right, and you've also, so we haven't talked about what you've won, and you've been winning for a few years now.
Yes.
Let me just come back to you in a second. Vishwa, you have a very different, obviously what you're doing is a different skill, it's memorization. And he does something really cool. If I can give our audiences a breakdown, वैसे तो आपसे आना चाहिए. I'm not giving you a chance to speak. But what he does is he imagines a room, or a house rather, and in different rooms of that house, he stores different words. So मान लो आप याद कर रहे हो, and then it's like you're walking through the house, veranda में कोई चीजें हैं, pathway में कोई चीजें हैं. That's how you remember the words. Is that correct? Like a map that you make in your brain?
Yeah, exactly. So I can tell that if you're watching a film, will you ever forget what happened in the film? You won't be forgetting, right? So the same thing if you read, even if you read the same story in a history book, you'll be forgetting that easier. That's because you are visualizing the movie. So that's the reason you are able to remember that. That's because of your imagination. So whatever I memorize, I imagine them, make a story out of it, and then visualize in whatever place I want. I mean, I feel comfortable. Let's say my home. So that, let's say my home. So you told me 20 words, right? I imagined everything in my home. So that's how I remember.
Okay, so here's my question. Our audience today that's sitting, if they asked you, how do we use this technique in our day-to-day?
Yeah.
So let me give an example. Say I want to remember someone's birthday. Say their birthday is, I was thinking of Mahatma Gandhi's birthday for some reason automatically, but that's too easy for our audiences. Let's go with the 11th of October.
11th October.
1963.
1963.
Walk our audiences through how they can get better at remembering.
Okay. So I would say 11 looks like 1-1, right? So we can imagine 2 pencils. Imagine 2 pencils is kept here. And October is 10th month. So whom do we remember when we hear the number 10? Sachin Tendulkar.
Oh, love it. Okay.
Sachin is coming and picking up the pencils. 1963. So what do you remember when you hear the number 19?
A young person about to become a 20-year-old.
Okay. So I'm 21 right now. So
Yeah.
I won my world championship when I was 20. So maybe let's consider me. So I was speaking to Sachin.
Oh.
Yeah. 63. I'm not getting anything related to 63, but
No.
I imagine a cooking set when I hear the number 63. So
Why a cooking set?
I'm not sure, but
Okay,
when I
okay.
started practicing, I used that. So imagine I was speaking to Sachin about starting a restaurant or something. So 2 pencils, 11 October 1963.
But ek cheez batao, when you're turning towards the screen and remembering all those sets of numbers,
Yeah.
what you were doing was coming up with different scenes that quickly?
Yeah.
Okay, that's incredible. I don't know if we feel like we can actually do that in our day-to-day. I hope we're feeling a little empowered because that was tricky to hear. I'll be honest with you. Tell me one thing. Do you ever have areas in your life that are hard to remember? I always find this interesting with geniuses, and I hope it's all right that I'm calling both of you a little bit, you both are young geniuses. Are there areas of your life that are actually trickier than a normal human would find them, for example?
No, I don't feel anything harder to remember. I feel everything easier.
Like it's not like anything is hard to remember.
Yeah, anything is easier.
Wow. And what about for you, Aryan? When it comes to doing maths, is it that maths comes easily and maybe there's another area, in the sciences or the social sciences that doesn't? Because before this we were talking, you love social sciences, which is very surprising to me. I was like, wow, so your brain works both ways. But is there an area where you find difficulty more than maybe your classmates?
Yeah, means it happens like whenever, like for months I don't write like language or any language I don't study. So it happens that you cannot write properly and like. So generally it don't happens in school, but in mental maths it happens that in particular subject, once it happens that for 6 months I was not getting right. So
in mental maths, you
yeah,
said.
particular subject. So errors happen, but we just
Yeah,
need
it was
to
really
find.
cool actually when that wrong number came up there, how much you took it in your stride. You pointed out something's wrong and then you just went on. And that brings us actually very quickly to my semi-last question. I want to ask both of you, because you've both been doing this for years. We haven't talked enough about your story. We're almost done with our time, but I do want to ask, for our audiences, both of these young men in front of us have been working on these skills for years. And Aryan, I just want to ask you first, and Vishwa, I'll come to you after that.
Yeah, okay.
Aryan, tell me a little bit about when it's been harder for you. So walk us through maybe the months when you're doing the sums, you're not getting them right again and again.
Yes.
I want to know, amid that frustration, how do you reset your mental pattern? What does the mind of a winner sound like?
So I would say the most difficult time was the COVID time, because there were no competitions. For 2 years there were no competitions. So keeping that fire under us to win, and that was very much tough. Practicing for 2 years with there was no prescribed competition or any schedule that competition is going to come. So it was important to not give up. So I would say that was the most tough
What
time.
was your secret to your perseverance in that time?
My secret is like not giving up, I would say, and have a passion for what you do. Yeah, so my passion for mental mathematics keep me going.
Yeah, it's been very cool to speak to both of you and realize that you both really love what you're doing. And I think it's a love for it that fuels more than anything else.
Yes.
Right? And that's really cool. Can I ask you, Vishwa, a little bit about what it's been like for you? So you're older. You're about 6 years older. I think that's fair to say. You're 6 years older. You've been also doing this for the last few years.
Yeah.
Your parents are not here today, but I'm sure they really, really support this and think it's really cool. But What have the difficult times looked like for you? With memorization, it's a different set of skills altogether.
Yeah.
Are there days where things are just not sticking? I want to know if, you're going through something emotionally turbulent.
Yeah. It's there.
Does it become harder for you?
Yeah,
What
I
does that
can.
look like?
Yeah, I started my training in the year of 2021 myself. I just bought my laptop and started logging into the Memory League website and trained myself. So that's how I started. When I started, I trained like 10 hours a day. But later, I stopped my training because I couldn't focus. I don't know what happened. I couldn't focus, so I just stopped my training. But I was participating in every competitions consistently, but not training. What happened, like in the year 2024, when I was in a competition, I'm about to win it. It's happening online, but there was a sudden mental fog. But I started losing every point, and I just got eliminated. I realized at the moment I'm going to quit the sport. But what happened? Before quitting the sport, I accidentally registered for another competition, which is happening next month.
Yeah.
So I just thought to myself, before quitting, I'm going to participate there. Even I'm going to lose, I'm not going to bother. I just trained 10 days before the competition. You won't believe, I won the competition. It's an international slam. And after winning, the next year, the World Championship is happening. It was also online, which happened in 2025 January. People were telling that the top 2 players of the world was Alex Molan. He is 6-time world memory champion from America.
Yeah.
And another person was Matteo Silo. He's from Italy. And these 2 guys are like too amazing in sports of memory. And none of them spoke about me. They just telling that the final is going to happen between these 2 guys. I got emotionally sad. I started practicing a lot. And you won't believe that in the finals, they both didn't appear. Instead, me and my friend Nasser Ali, he is from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
We both are same age. He too got emotionally sad, and we both practiced really hard for 2 months in the month of November and December. And in January, Alex and Matteo just got lost to 2 persons.
Was it
We
you and
both-
him?
Yeah.
Lovely, huh?
No one thought that this is going to happen, because a lower ranked player
Yeah.
from nowhere, just we both came to the top, and I won the world championship. He came as a runner-up.
This is such a sexy India story. You know what I mean? In the sense that
Yeah.
so many times we hear about young people like both of you. I
Yeah.
just want to tell our audiences also, you're 20 and he has a New York Times profile about him. So if you search him, you'll get this whole article about your memory techniques,
Yeah.
which I just think is so cool. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up, and I want to thank both of you. But before we do, we have a list to ask of him. So we're going to do that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
hope you're ready, Vishwa, for your
okay.
moment of truth. Let's go. Do you want to start from the top and tell
Yeah.
us?
Dog, grass, helix, chewing gum, rocket, flamingo, 54 boys, grease, chips, flimbuster, swimsuit, bus, saliva, continuing, bugdy, lemon, disappointment, Cadbury's, and fish skull.
Yeah, this is the fiscal stimulus. All right. It's been lovely to speak to both of you. And I think I saw a hand up in the audience. We're going to have to be very quick. We just have a minute left. Please go ahead. Okay, boys, you just have a minute. What's your source of energy? Your source of inspiration?
So I practice Surge Yoga meditation, which helps me to be calm and be mindful, and it also increases concentration power. As we have seen that in flash and then you need to be very much concentrated, or else the number will be missed.
So meditation, you said,
Yes.
is yours. And what about you?
I'm not a focused guy, but what I do, whenever I go to a competition, I watch Virat Kohli's videos, so I get motivated from that. I was a bit aggressive myself. Before every competition, I watch his videos like 2 to 3 hours. I just get that mindset to myself, and I won't be giving up in any competition.
So you get in the zone watching
Yeah.
Kohli. That's incredible to hear. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's so lovely to have your young energy, and just both of you are so confident, and that's what's been so inspiring to watch. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to say that everyone was mind blown would be an understatement. Thank you so much, Vishwa and Arya. A bright future for you ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we pause here for a while. I would request all of you all to proceed to Business Hall 4 for lunch. But 30 minutes is all you have. Something very exciting awaits you, and we need you, the audience, for the same. So see you in 30.
for, and the idea is also to get a better grip on how to approach this as a society, as a nation. So let me take the first question to Dr. Laheria then. Dr. Laheria, we are the obesity capital in so many ways. Our numbers are almost there in the top 3. At this time when weight loss drugs should in a way be, like if it were any other disease, it would be celebrated, that finally there is a cure. Why is it that we are looking at these drugs as you're not sure what is it for or what's happening? So can you begin by first defining what have we understood wrong about obesity in general?
Thank you very much. So one of the important development in last decade has been, or last decade and more so in the last few years, has been that we have started recognizing obesity is a health issue, a health condition or disease which require treatment, care, management. And these are important conversations because if we go by the numbers, in 1 in every 4 adults in India is either overweight or obese. And there are other ways to look at it. For example, if we talk about generalized obesity, that is 1 in every 4 adults, but abdominal obesity, which is an important risk factor and parameter to measure obesity, is 1 in every 3rd adult. And another approach to look at it, which has implications in terms of heart disease and other, is dyslipidemia. So the level of cholesterol and lipids are deranged in 1 in every 5 adults. So these numbers are worrying, and they all come from extra fat in the body. So first point, if we talk about the important part is that we have lately started recognizing that obesity is something which requires care.
But if Dr. Laheria, you could tell us the difference between being fat and being obese.
Well, that's a very interesting point, and that's why I gave a longish introduction. So the point is that there are a range of definitions for obesity, and for long the approach which was used as a body mass index. So WHO said that more than 25 is overweight, more than 30 of body mass index is obesity. But over a period of time, this definition has changed, and they are contextual also. For example, Asian Indians, there is a concept called thin fat Indian, which means for the same body mass level as of European, Indians and Asian population has a higher body fat. And the composition of body fat is a major factor in it. So the definition keeps changing. For India, the definition was always lower, BMI. But more recently, some of the Indian definition has come, which say that anyone who has a body mass index more than 23 is obese, which is stage 1 or stage 2 obesity. That definition has come. But I want to delve briefly into this. So there are new other parameters to look at obesity. For example, your waist circumference. For the male, it should not be more than 90 centimeter. For female, it should not be more than 80 centimeter. There are other approach to waist circumference to height ratio. The waist circumference in the centimeter, if you divide height in centimeters, should be less than 0.5. So multiple parameters are coming up, and now globally there is a discourse going on that it should be preclinical and clinical obesity. But finally, coming to the key part, I am really pleasantly happy as a medical doctor and public policy specialist that the societal norm which normalize obesity as just a well-fed individual is changing. We people across India and policy making have started recognizing that obesity or overweight is a health condition, which is a risk factor in itself, but also a disease condition. And final point I would like to make is that this discourse is really important because that's where we can start making difference.
I'm glad you brought it up because I think we are finally at that stage where the education or perhaps the definition is becoming more nuanced. Is no longer somebody just looking a particular type fit. Being lean does not mean being fit. Similarly, being fat does not mean that you are so-called unfit. But a lot of people struggle with other issues as well. I'll come to that in a bit. Let me bring in Mr. Thakur there. Then, when it comes to weight loss drugs, I think the most pertinent issue is that people see it as a magic pill. What is it that they are missing here?
So I think first it's important to note that it's not a magic pill, right? It's also not for lifestyle. It's not for a vanity tool. These are medications that are approved for use with a prescription, and therefore a chronic disease, which is obesity, right? We had a definition of obesity, and I think it's important to note that when someone is overweight or obese, their body is set a new level of weight. We call that like a set point. And so the body wants to maintain that set point. And when we think about these medications, they operate on two different levels, right? They target incretin hormones, and there are two, GLP-1 and GIP. And so they either target those individually or both at the same time. And what they do is they work on a brain level to regulate appetite, regulate hormones, regulate metabolism. And so over time, the body then perceives hunger differently, food intake differently, which allows patients to